My brother looked at my son and said, "At least he'll always have janitor work." The table laughed. "But my kid didn't," I said calmly, "yet your whole business runs because I keep the ires off your back." My brother's smile faded. My dad said, "Let's not escalate." But he looked my son dead in the face and said, "Well, at least he'll always have janitor work." The table laughed. Full ugly laughter. My kid sat there frozen. He didn't even blink. Jonah's 17. He's quiet, kind, smarter than most people give him credit for. He's not the loudest in the room, so people overlook him. Especially Rick. My older brother, owner of a local gym chain, self-declared success story, and the biggest narcissist I've ever known. A few months back, Rick offered Jonah a part-time job at one of his gyms. Said he wanted to help the boy learn responsibility. I thought it was generous. Turns out it wasn't. He had Jonah fetching coffee, scrubbing bathroom floors, and cleaning up after drunk bodybuilders at 10 p.m. He called him assistant to the assistant, and told people it was a family charity case. But that night was different. He humiliated him in front of everyone. My parents, my cousins, my son. A room full of people who laughed because they were used to laughing at Rick's jokes, because no one ever told him to shut up. Except I did. I said calmly without raising my voice, "Yet your whole business only runs because I keep the ires off your back." And just like that, the laughter stopped. Rick looked at me like he was trying to decide whether to laugh or get angry. He smirked, but his face twitched. Because he knew it wasn't a joke. My dad, trying to sweep the tension off the table like crumbs, muttered something about not escalating things. But I wasn't escalating. I was just done playing along. I'd been cleaning up Rick's messes for years. I'm a forensic accountant. I know exactly where money goes when it's being hidden. I know what gym equipment looks like on paper when it's written off 6 times under different LLCs. I know what happens when you pay your trainers under the table and write off cash bonuses as consulting fees. I've known for years. And I kept my mouth shut. Because family. But that night, watching Jonah stare at his plate, cheeks red, eyes wet, something in me broke. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, opened my laptop, and downloaded 3 years' worth of Rick's financial files. By 9:30 a.m., I had a meeting booked with a friend at the IRS. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about finally doing what I should have done the first time Rick made my son bring him lunch and clean puke off the locker room floor just to laugh about it in the break room. Rick's text came through while I was still sitting in the IRS parking lot. "Did you do something? HR just said someone from the Treasury contacted them about our contractor records. What the hell is going on?" I stared at the screen for a while before locking it and putting my phone face down on the passenger seat. Let him sweat. An hour earlier, I'd walked out of the IRS field office with an empty folder in my hand and a very full silence in my head. The kind of silence that settles in when something's already been set in motion and there's no stopping it. Aaron, the agent I met with, didn't smile once. Didn't need to. He wasn't surprised by anything I showed him. The invoices, the duplicate equipment expenses, the cash-only consulting fees to names that don't exist. The fake subcontractors, the gym expansion projects that never happened, the personal vacations listed as leadership retreats. "This isn't even subtle," he said. "Your brother's either arrogant or stupid. Possibly both." I didn't disagree. Back in my office, I printed every version of the monthly books Rick had ever asked me to tweak. Just to keep everything clean. Just to smooth out some numbers. The lies were layered but not hidden. That's the thing about arrogant people. They don't hide what they don't think they'll be punished for. By day 3, Rick had gone from silence to subtle panic. The downtown gym, his flagship, got hit with a surprise inspection. IRS agents walked in, asked for payroll records, contract files, and identity verification on over 20 part-time staff. Jonah was working when it happened. No warning. No heads up from Rick. Just men in suits asking questions about who paid him, how he was paid, and whether he received benefits. He said no to all 3. He came home with his backpack half-zipped and asked me why federal agents were talking to him about gym paperwork. That's when I told him the truth. I laid it all out. Every lie I'd been covering for Rick. Every red flag I should have reported years ago. Every moment I'd ignored because I didn't want to start family problems. I told Jonah I should have spoken up the first time his uncle made him clean up vomit off a locker room floor while calling it character building. He didn't say much. He just nodded and said he didn't feel bad about it. Not even a little. Rick's meltdown came 2 days later. It was a Saturday. I was in the kitchen with the window open when I heard tires screech outside. I didn't think much of it until I heard the car door slam and fists hitting my front door like he was trying to wake the dead. I opened it and there he was, face flushed, eyes wild. "You have no idea what you've done to me," he said. Not hello. Not can we talk. Just straight to the accusation. I let him stand there. He kept going. Said there were full audits happening now. Said he had to pull bank statements for 5 different LLCs and half of them didn't match their tax filings. Said his lawyer was asking questions he didn't know how to answer. He said one of his employees, someone I didn't even know, had already lawyered up and was cooperating with investigators. "Fix it," he said. "You know how to. You got us into this, you can get us out." I looked at him and said, "No, Rick. I got myself out." That's when he realized it was over. Not just the audit. The protection. The safety net. The free labor. I shut the door. And that was the last time Rick stood on my porch. The next week was quiet, too quiet. I knew Rick wasn't going to go down without throwing punches. But he also knew better than to try anything obvious. When a man's being audited by the IRS and chased by the Department of Labor, there's only so much bluffing he can do. Then one by one the cracks widened. A former manager at one of his gyms went public. He posted a long thread online with screenshots of pay stubs with held bonuses, texts from Rick where he joked about cutting corners and paying people under the table. The post blew up in local fitness circles. Some of the employees jumped in confirming it. A few admitted they'd never signed official contracts. Clients began canceling their memberships. The gyms started hemorrhaging money. Meanwhile, I kept working, not for Rick but on my own books. I took his company off my client list. I updated every contract I'd signed in the past year and had a lawyer look over my own paper trail just to make sure nothing tied me to his schemes. I wasn't worried. I'd never signed anything shady. Rick always gave me verbal instructions. That was his way of staying clean. Until it wasn't. The final nail didn't come from me. It came from someone inside. Apparently one of his former accountants, a guy named Marcus I'd never even met, flipped. He handed over emails where Rick had instructed him to delete invoice records and recreate tax summaries. There were receipts, bank transfers, an entire set of fake books parallel to the ones he sent to the IRS. That was enough. A federal investigation was opened. I got a call from Aaron, the agent I'd spoken to, letting me know that Rick was officially under review for fraud, misclassification of workers, and falsifying tax records. There were potential charges. Possibly jail time depending on what else turned up. I didn't tell Jonah any of that. Not yet. He was doing better. He'd stopped slouching around the house. Started going to therapy, quietly on his own. One afternoon I walked into his room and found a whiteboard full of ideas for a business he wanted to start. Nothing complicated, just a local courier service for small businesses. Simple, fast, reliable. He even had a logo drawn up. I asked if he was serious. He said yeah, actually he was. So I helped him set it up. Filed the paperwork, got him an LLC, helped him build a simple website and rent a small storage unit for supplies. I didn't do the work for him, I just gave him the tools. For once he looked like he believed he could do something that mattered. A week later Rick's lawyer called me. I didn't pick up but he left a message. Something about misunderstandings, possible overreach, a chance to clarify certain numbers. He wanted to meet. Said Rick was willing to talk. I deleted the voicemail. Rick wasn't interested in making anything right. He wanted me to fix what he broke. But there was nothing left to fix. His gyms were going under. His reputation was trashed. His fake employees were testifying. His financial lifeline was gone. And I wasn't stepping in this time. 3 weeks after the audit started, Rick's name hit the news. A local paper ran the headline. Popular gym chain owner under federal investigation for tax fraud, employee abuse. It wasn't just the money stuff anymore. Former employees started coming forward with stories that had nothing to do with taxes and everything to do with who Rick really was. Threats over withheld pay. Harassment. A trainer who'd torn her ACL at work and was told she wasn't technically full-time, so no coverage. Another who claimed Rick made him pay under the table for equipment damage that was already broken when he got there. Each story chipped away at his golden boy image. The guy who always showed up to family dinners bragging about his grind, talking about how no one handed him anything. Except they had. I did. He wasn't a self-made anything. I'd cleaned up his books, covered the tracks, gave him a wall to hide behind. All those years I thought I was keeping the peace. Turns out I was just buying time. Jonah read the article on his phone. He didn't say anything at first, just turned the screen to show me. Is it weird that I don't feel bad? He asked. I told him no. Rick had humiliated him. Given him fake work just to laugh about it. Told him he wasn't good for anything beyond scrubbing floors. That kind of wound doesn't just go away. Then right on schedule Rick made one last move. I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A physical letter, typed, folded, signed. It wasn't an apology. It was a threat, dressed up like a legal notice. His lawyer claimed that I had violated confidentiality by disclosing internal financial records. That I had cost Rick millions in damages and that litigation may be pursued if cooperation is not restored. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it straight to Aaron at the IRS and my own lawyer. He called me 10 minutes later and said, if they try anything, we'll bury them in discovery. I never heard about the letter again. Within a month, Rick's downtown gym was closed. The windows were covered in brown paper. The for lease sign went up 2 weeks later. His Instagram, where he used to post endless reels about being your own boss, went dark. His personal account was locked. People started whispering at family events. My mother asked me if I could talk to someone and make this all stop. I told her I already had. Rick was officially being charged. 3 counts of fraud. 1 of obstruction. He wasn't arrested that day. Not yet. But everyone knew where it was headed. He tried to disappear. Claimed it was all political, that he was being targeted. But no one bought it. The silence around him grew louder. And Jonah? He got his first contract. A bakery across town hired him to run same-day delivery. Just him and a beat-up Honda he bought with saved tips and some help from me. He came home that night with flour on his hoodie and a smile I hadn't seen in months. We were sitting on the couch watching TV when he looked over and said, "You didn't have to do all that." I told him, "I didn't do it for you. I did it because it needed to be done." And that was the truth. Rick had always played with fire. He just didn't think the match would come from someone sitting across the dinner table. The video was 19 seconds long. Rick, wearing a black hoodie, hands behind his back, being guided out the front door of his overpriced rental by 2 plainclothes agents. No words. No resistance. His face tight, not angry, just scared. For once, genuinely scared. I watched it 3 times. Not because I enjoyed it. Not for revenge. But because it was real. For years, Rick had felt untouchable, fast-talking his way through audits, hiding behind me and my spreadsheets, throwing his weight around like laws didn't apply to him. Now they did. I didn't forward the clip to anyone. Didn't comment, didn't post. I sat there in my kitchen, my phone face down on the counter, and let the silence wash over the space Rick used to occupy in my life. The arrest wasn't just for tax fraud. It had grown. The charges included falsified records, misclassification of employees, labor violations, obstruction, and the big one, conspiracy. Turns out Rick didn't act alone. One of his managers flipped, handed over recorded conversations. They had him cold. News spread quickly in the local business community. Gym clients canceled in waves. Landlords broke leases. One of Rick's former partners went public, saying Rick had tricked him into signing contracts that turned out to be worthless. Another filed a civil suit. People who used to cheer him on vanished. His name turned radioactive overnight. And then came the calls. Not from Rick. He couldn't call me, he'd already been told not to contact me directly. But suddenly I was hearing from people who had never bothered to text back before. My cousin Alicia wanted to grab coffee and catch up. An old friend of Rick's called to see how I was holding up. Even one of Rick's former accountants sent me a message saying, "Honestly, I always wondered how you put up with him. You deserve peace." But the most surreal call came from my mother. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask how Jonah was doing. She asked one question. "Why are you doing this to your brother?" Even after everything. Even after the arrest, the evidence, the headlines. She still thought I had turned on him. That I was the villain in this story. I told her the truth. I didn't do this to him. He did this to himself. I just stopped helping him get away with it. She didn't know what to say. That was the first time in my adult life my mother had nothing to say. Rick's first court appearance was closed to the public, but the documents were released a week later. His lawyer tried to paint him as someone burdened by rapid business growth, who had made mistakes, and was misguided, not malicious. But the numbers told a different story. $1.6 million in undeclared income. $420,000 in fake deductions. Over 50 misclassified employees. And one internal document, signed and dated, where Rick wrote, "These morons will never check this, trust me." They checked. And while all this played out, something else happened. Something small. Jonah got his first business loan. A small one, just enough to hire one part-time employee and buy a used van for deliveries. He didn't ask me to co-sign. He got it himself with clean credit and a clear plan. He came home, tossed the key on the counter and said, "It's not much, but it's mine." I just nodded. I didn't need to say anything. He knew I was proud. A week later, he dropped off flowers to a woman downtown who used to be Rick's client. She looked at the logo on his shirt and said, "Wait, are you related to?" He cut her off and said, "Nope. Just run my own thing now." And that was that. Rick was finally gone, not just from our lives but from the space he used to take up in Jonah's head. That silence was everything. Rick took a plea deal. 3 years in federal prison, 5 years probation, restitution, and a permanent ban from managing any registered business. He took it fast. His lawyer must have told him it was the only deal he'd get before things got worse. They had too much. Emails, recordings, statements. There was no version of reality where he walked away clean. He didn't fight it. He didn't apologize either. He just disappeared. My mother never brought him up again. She called less often after that. I think she was ashamed, but she never said the words. In her mind, the family had broken apart. What she couldn't admit was that it had already been broken for years. Rick was just the first to be held accountable. And Jonah? He kept going. The courier business picked up. He got 2 more clients before winter, and by spring he was delivering for 3 bakeries, a florist, and a small printing shop. He hired a second driver. Set up invoicing. Got his first glowing online review from a customer who wrote, "Fast, polite, on time. Wish more businesses ran like this." It made him smile, but only for a second. He was already thinking about ways to improve the route efficiency. That's how he works now. Quiet, steady, forward. One afternoon I came home and found him in the garage, organizing his supplies into plastic tubs. Labeling everything. There was something about the way he moved, calm, focused, that hit me harder than all the courtroom paperwork ever did. I asked him how it was going. He shrugged and said, "Not bad." That was the biggest difference. He wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. Rick used to walk into a room like he needed it to clap. Jonah walked into rooms now like he didn't need permission to be there. He earned that. A few months later I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. I knew the handwriting immediately, Rick's. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I dropped it straight in the trash. Because some things don't need closure. Some things don't deserve it. He got what he earned. Not because of what he did to me, but because of what he did to my son. I gave him chances. I gave him silence. I gave him cover. But he took Jonah's dignity and turned it into a punchline. And that's where the story ends. Not with revenge. Not with some grand finale. But with my son out there on his own terms, driving a delivery van through the city with his name on the side. Free. Finally.